They say time heals all wounds. But what if time is just a mask? What if the life you've built, the one polished by wealth, status, and reputation, is nothing but a shell hiding a secret so dark it refuses to stay buried? Because sometimes, the dead don't stay dead. And sometimes, vengeance wears the face of the woman you killed. This is the story of Ethan Caldwell. A respected man. A self-made millionaire. And a murderer. 10 years ago, Ethan killed his wife and buried her in the Arizona desert. Tonight, she knocked on his door. Ethan Caldwell had built his life on appearances. He was everything Scottsdale admired, sharp-suited, smooth-talking, the kind of man who could close a deal over drinks and donate 6 figures to a children's hospital the next morning. His desert estate sat high on the hills, far from the noise of the city. Inside, it was a sanctuary of modern glass, muted tones, and silence. It was exactly 8 p.m., the time Ethan always poured 2 fingers of Glenfiddich into a crystal glass and sat by the fireplace. A ritual that had never changed in 10 years. Not since Claire, his wife, had told him she wanted a divorce. Not since he'd wrapped her lifeless body in a Navajo throw blanket and buried her 50 miles out in the sand near Coyote Ridge. He stared into the flames that night, sipping his whiskey. Business was good. The past was gone. No one suspected a thing. Until the doorbell rang. He frowned. Nobody visited unannounced. His assistant scheduled everything. It must have been a delivery. He opened the door casually. And dropped his glass. There on the stone steps stood Claire. The same green eyes. The same freckle on her upper lip. The same voice that had haunted his dreams for a decade. "Hey, Ethan," she said as casually as if she'd just come back from yoga. "What took you so long to answer?" Ethan stumbled back. "You're dead." Claire tilted her head. "Are you drunk?" She brushed past him into the house. Her coat hung effortlessly on the same rack he'd kept from their apartment. She looked around. "You changed the floors. Looks good. I'd have gone with walnut, though." Ethan stood frozen, heart racing. His brain screamed for logic. A dream. A hallucination. A break from reality. "You can't be here," he whispered. "I buried you." She turned, brows furrowed. "You what?" "No, this isn't real." His hand gripped the wall. She stepped closer. The scent, her signature perfume. Her hands, "Maybe you're the one who needs sleep," she said gently. "You've been off all day. You took me to my doctor's appointment this morning, remember?" He didn't sleep that night. When she tucked into bed beside him, Ethan lay stiff, eyes wide in the dark. Her breathing was rhythmic. Her presence was warm. And her being alive was impossible. The next morning, she was making breakfast. As if nothing had ever happened. He watched her, the way she moved, the way she stirred her coffee clockwise with exactly 2 sugars. "Ethan, you're doing it again," she said without turning. "Staring like I've grown a second head." He forced a laugh. "Just tired." But he wasn't tired. He was unraveling. Later that day, while she was upstairs, Ethan opened his phone. He had taken photos of her the last 3 days, without her noticing. But when he opened the gallery, every photo of Claire was corrupted. Blurs. Like something was interfering with the images. "Impossible," he whispered. He sent one to his email. But when he opened it on his computer, it was clear. She was right there. Smiling. Just as he remembered. The 3rd day, Claire vanished. Gone without a trace. No note. No sign of departure. Not a thing out of place. He tore through the house, calling her name. Nothing. He went back to the photos again, and there she was, in every one. Crystal clear. She was real. Or she wanted him to think she was. That evening, Ethan slumped into his chair by the fire. He barely touched his drink. Rough day. She was back. Claire stood in the doorway, wearing the same blouse she died in. "Where did you go?" Ethan asked, voice trembling. "I called. I looked everywhere." She smiled softly. "I never left. You just weren't looking in the right places." By day 5, he was recording himself. Paranoia gripped him. He made a video journal. March 29, 2025. This is Ethan Caldwell. If you're watching this and I'm gone, it's her. She's back. Claire's back. That night, Ethan's phone buzzed. A message. From unknown. Subject. Look behind you. Turned. No one. Then a knock at the door. Detective Marcus Vance stood on the porch. The same man who'd tried, and failed, to pin Ethan for Claire's disappearance 10 years ago. Evening, Mr. Caldwell, he said, smirking. Mind if I come in? Vance stepped inside. Oh yeah? That's her? He said, nodding to the couch. Ethan turned to point. The couch was empty. Claire was gone. Detective Marcus Vance didn't need an invitation. He stepped inside Ethan's modern, dimly lit living room like he owned the place. The sound of the door shutting behind him echoed like a gavel striking down a guilty verdict. Sorry for the intrusion, Vance said, casually brushing past Ethan. But I figured we should catch up. Old times and all. It's been 10 years, Ethan said, doing his best to steady his voice. Exactly. Which is why you being so jumpy makes me curious. Ethan forced a chuckle. It's just unexpected. I'm busy these days. Vance looked around, his gaze lingering on the couch. You said you had company. Ethan hesitated. She stepped out. A friend from out of town. Name? Lauren. The lie came too fast. Vance smiled knowingly. Lauren, huh? Not Claire. Ethan's heart stopped. Vance leaned in. Funny thing. I got an anonymous tip this morning. Said you were acting unstable. Said a woman was seen around your house. A woman who looks a lot like your late wife. Claire's dead, Ethan snapped. You sure? Vance raised an eyebrow. Because the last time I checked, her body was never found. Ethan said nothing. Mind if I look around? Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it again. Be my guest, he said finally. Vance walked slowly through the house. Ethan followed. When they reached the guest room, it was spotless. No sign of Claire. No clothes. No suitcase. Nothing. The detective stepped closer to the bed and picked something up off the nightstand. A single hair. He held it up. Brown. Like Claire's. Ethan didn't respond. Vance slipped the hair into a baggie. DNA can be a real mood killer, huh? After the detective left, Ethan collapsed on the edge of his bed. The silence in the house was unbearable. Every creak in the walls felt like a whisper. He checked his phone. Still no new photos of Claire. Still no explanation. Until his email pinged. Subject, she knows. From unknown@protonmail.com. Attached was a video. Ethan opened it. It was footage of him, outside Coyote Ridge. At the grave. His own voice played. If Claire's body is here, then who the hell is in my house? He slammed the laptop shut. Who was watching him? The next morning, she was back in the kitchen. Morning, she said, stirring oatmeal. Where did you go last night? Ethan asked. She turned. I didn't go anywhere. The guest room was empty. She smiled. I stayed in the master. You were asleep. Ethan shook his head. No. I locked the door. Her smile didn't falter. You think a lock can keep me out? By day 7, Ethan was unraveling. Claire would appear and vanish without warning. Sometimes she'd talk about memories only the real Claire would know. Other times her stories didn't match. She said her favorite flower was peonies. Claire hated peonies. She said their honeymoon was in Hawaii. They'd gone to Aspen. She was testing him. No, taunting him. He knew then. Whoever this was, she wasn't Claire. Ethan planted hidden cameras. He set up motion sensors. He even installed a keylogger on his own computer. He needed proof. Proof he wasn't going insane. One night, he heard a sound coming from the attic. A soft creak. Like footsteps on wood. He climbed up slowly. Flashlight in hand. The attic was empty. Almost. A hidden door. A narrow space behind the insulation. Inside, a bedroll, an old photo of Claire, a laptop, and dozens of sticky notes. Dates. Passwords. His passwords. He staggered back. Someone was living in his house. And knew everything. He returned to his study. Opened his laptop. Logged into the security feed. There she was. In the kitchen. Alone. Tapped. Her reflection wasn't in the window. He rewound. Played again. Still no reflection. What the hell? Ethan began recording everything. Audio. Video. Daily journals. He contacted a private investigator. Gave him all the footage. The PI called back the next day. "That woman in your videos?" he said. "She's not Claire Caldwell. Her name is Riley Hart." Ethan felt his blood run cold. She was Claire's best friend. They grew up together in Flagstaff. She vanished a week after Claire did. That night she was waiting. Riley. In Claire's skin. She smiled. "Finally figured it out, didn't you?" Ethan backed away. "Why?" She stepped closer. "Because she deserved better. Because you destroyed her. Because you thought you could bury the past. But I'm here to dig it up." He lunged. She sidestepped. He hit the wall hard. When he turned, she had something in her hand. A small recorder. She pressed play. His own voice echoed through the room. "I killed her. I buried her east of the oak tree." Ethan froze. "Game over," Riley whispered. The front door burst open. Detective Vance entered with 3 officers. "Ethan Caldwell, you're under arrest for the murder of Claire Caldwell." Riley didn't look at him. She walked past without a word. But in her eyes, a storm of victory. It began with grief. Then it became an obsession. But revenge? That was never the plan. Not at first. Before Riley Hart wore Claire Caldwell's face, she wore guilt. Guilt for living. For surviving. For escaping a man who had ruined her friend and disappeared into myth. But Ethan Caldwell? He was real. And he was about to meet the woman he tried to erase. 10 years earlier, Riley Hart stared at the picture frame in her tiny Flagstaff apartment. Claire's smile beamed from behind the glass. The photo was cracked. The edges curled. She hadn't moved it since the day she got the call. The day Claire went missing. The day Riley knew Ethan had killed her. Because she knew Claire. Better than anyone. Claire would never vanish without calling. Never miss their Sunday brunch. Never let her bank accounts go cold. Never. Riley fell apart quietly. Behind the curtains. Behind polite smiles at work. She moved through life like a shadow. Until the night she found the file. Claire had sent it to her 2 weeks before she died. A backup drive. Hidden inside a scented candle jar. On it, recordings. Secret audio of arguments. Photos of bruises. Video diaries. All pointing to one man. Ethan Caldwell. Claire had been preparing. She feared for her life. And if something happened to her, she wanted Riley to finish what she started. "He'll never stop," Claire had whispered in the final video. "If you're seeing this, I'm gone. Do what I couldn't. Please." That night, Riley Hart disappeared. And someone else was born. Back in the present. Detective Marcus Vance leaned against the two-way mirror inside the Scottsdale PD interview room. Through the glass, Ethan Caldwell sat chained to the table, staring at nothing. Vance turned to Riley. "You sure you want to watch this?" She nodded. He hit play. The tape rolled. Ethan's voice filled the room. "We argued. She told me she was leaving. Said she'd tell the press about what I did. I snapped. I didn't mean to. But I couldn't let her ruin me." He paused. His breathing trembled. "I wrapped her in the rug. I drove for hours. I buried her in the lot behind Coyote Ridge. 50 paces east of the old oak." Silence. Vance clicked the recorder off. "That's enough for you?" he asked. Riley nodded again. But inside, something was off. Ethan had confessed. But too easily. Too cleanly. Like he'd rehearsed it. That night, she sat alone in the hotel room she'd been using. The walls were too quiet. Her heart pounded too loud. She looked at the board on the wall, a chaotic web of photos, timelines, maps, and highlighted names. Something didn't fit. She zoomed in on an old news clipping from 2015. A local missing persons case. Flagstaff police. A woman found in the desert. Not Claire. Someone else. But the body was burned. Unidentified. Riley had a terrible thought. What if he didn't kill Claire? What if the woman in the grave wasn't her? The next morning, Riley drove to Coyote Ridge. The grave was still there. She counted 50 paces from the tree. The earth had shifted. Vance met her at the site. "We're exhuming today. You want to be here?" "Yes." They watched in silence as the forensics team worked. Hours passed. And then bones. The remains were lifted carefully. A jawbone. A few teeth. A pendant. Riley's breath caught. The necklace. Claire's necklace. The one Riley gave her on her 18th birthday. She dropped to her knees. Vance put a hand on her shoulder. "It's her." That night, Riley returned to Ethan's estate. It was quiet. For once, the house felt like what it was, a mausoleum. A tomb. She walked through the halls, brushing her fingers along the walls, the photographs, the cold glass. And then, in Ethan's private office, she found it. A locked drawer. Inside, a thumb drive. She plugged it into her laptop. Encrypted. But not for long. She watched the screen. Dozens of video files loaded. All labeled. All dated. She clicked the oldest one. Bruised. Crying. "If you're watching this," she whispered to the camera, "I didn't make it." Riley clicked another. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She was angry. "He thinks he's untouchable. He thinks no one will believe me. But you will, Riley. You have to. You always did." Riley broke down. The final file loaded. A confession. Not Ethan's. Claire's. "If you go through with this, if you take my place, don't forget who you are. Don't lose yourself." Riley stared at the screen. She already had. The trial came quickly. Ethan pled guilty. Life without parole. The courtroom buzzed with cameras, reporters, outrage, and relief. Riley sat in the back, watching. Not as Claire. Not as a victim. But as a survivor. When it ended, she left without speaking. She drove for hours. To Flagstaff. To the alley where it all started. Where she and Claire were attacked as teens. She stood there in silence, lit only by the glow of a street lamp. "I did it," she whispered. "I kept my promise." A breeze blew through the alley. "But who am I now?" Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number, you missed something." She frowned. Attached was a photo. The pendant from the grave. Except the initials on it weren't Claire's. They were RH. Riley Hart. The body wasn't Claire. Ethan confessed. But to whose murder? And if Claire is still out there, why hasn't she come back? Detective Marcus Vance sat alone in his office, staring at the final lab report. DNA confirmed what the initials hinted at. The body buried at Coyote Ridge wasn't Claire. It was Riley, Claire's best friend. The woman who had supposedly orchestrated the greatest act of revenge he'd ever seen. But if Riley was in the ground, then who was the woman who had played her part so flawlessly? He picked up the phone. Rang. And rang. Voicemail. "Riley. Call me back. We need to talk. Urgently." He hung up, stood, and turned toward the board on the wall. Pictures of Ethan, Riley, Claire. All tangled in red string and questions. Nothing added up anymore. Somewhere outside Tucson, in a rundown motel off the highway, a woman stared into a cracked mirror. She pulled off the dark wig, revealing auburn curls beneath. Wiped the makeup clean. Removed the colored contact lenses. And stared at the face beneath. Claire Caldwell. Very much alive. She didn't look like the woman from the old photographs. Not exactly. The surgeries had changed her, just enough to pass as someone else. But the eyes, those haunted, razor-sharp green eyes, were unmistakable. On the night Ethan attacked her, she hadn't died. She blacked out. Woke up in the trunk of his car. Still breathing. Barely. And she had crawled out of a shallow grave before the last handful of dirt could become her coffin. Claire had gone underground. Scarred. Terrified. But alive. She thought about going to the police. But she knew Ethan. Knew how powerful he was. Knew how easy it would be to frame her as unstable, vengeful, even dangerous. So she made a plan. She reached out to the one person she trusted, Riley Hart. Together they would make him pay. But something went wrong. Claire had waited at the meeting point. But Riley never came. Not until weeks later, when Claire found her body. Burnt. Beaten. Unrecognizable except for the necklace. Claire took Riley's place. Took her name. Trained her body, her voice, her face. Watched videos. Memorized notes. Learned how to become the woman who had once wanted to become her. And when she was ready, she knocked on Ethan's door. Now she was free. Ethan was behind bars. Justice had been served. But peace? That was a different story. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, pulled out her laptop, and logged into an encrypted drive. Inside were all the backups. All the files Riley had helped collect. All the pain, the anger, the planning. She opened a final folder labeled, "For Her." Inside, one video. Claire clicked play. Riley's face filled the screen. Tired. Thrown. Claire, if you see this, it means you made it. You came back. You did what I couldn't. She paused. But don't lose yourself in revenge. Don't forget who you are. Because I didn't survive that alley just to become a weapon. I survived to become free. And I hope you do too. Claire shut the laptop and wept. The next day, Claire walked into a legal office in Phoenix. Name? The receptionist asked. Riley Hart, she replied. The receptionist nodded. We have you down for a 10 a.m. name change appointment. Claire hesitated, then shook her head. No, not anymore. Make it Claire Caldwell. I'm done hiding. Detective Vance got the call that evening. She filed the paperwork. Confirmed identity through dental records. It's her. Claire Caldwell. He hung up the phone and stared out the window. Justice, he thought. But justice for who? They say the dead don't come back. But sometimes they do. Not as ghosts. Not as monsters. But as something far more dangerous. The truth. Claire Caldwell died once. But she clawed her way back. To avenge her friend. To punish her abuser. And to reclaim her name. But at what cost? Because sometimes, even when justice is served, the scars don't fade. They only change faces. If this story moved you, if it chilled you, if it made you question everything, then don't let it end here. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. And leave a comment below. Tell us, do you believe revenge brings peace? Or does it just open new wounds? Until next time, stay vigilant. Stay human. And remember, truth always finds its voice.